Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's Secret Sunday session. Today, I'm joined by Leah Simmons. I'm really excited to have Leah on here today because I have been following her story for a little while and what she's doing, because I think she's making waves in the health and fitness industry, as well as the wellness and health space, which we're going to be talking about today. So I'm not going to sit here any longer and talk about Leah because I could go on for hours. I'm going to let Leah welcome to the Secret Sunday session.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. And to kick us off today, do you want to just share with everyone, for those people who don't know, who is Leah Simmons and what do you do?
Oh, well, that is a big question. Who is Leah Simmons? Well, that is a question that I ask myself every single day. And I think Leah Simmons is evolving. She is a constantly growing, constantly expanding entity that has been through many, many iterations of herself. And I'm sure we'll go through many iterations as the future unfolds. But to date, I'm a mother, I'm a business owner, I am a woman, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, I'm many things, but I have I guess my work journey has been varied and has taken me into many different countries. So I actually started off in the music industry way back when. I was a DJ for 18 years. I lived in London for 6 years. I ran a record label over there. And so I've been in the health and wellness space for about 15 years. I moved back from London in 2006, and it was a really interesting time in the music industry. iTunes had just sort of come onto the scene, so all of the independent record labels were going through a little bit of a shake-up with how they kind of I guess, went from physical sales into the digital world. And I was running an independent label at the time. And I thought, you know what, this is a really good time for me to exit the music industry in that capacity and dip my toe into something new. I've always been into health and fitness. It was never a career of mine. Music was my first love, and it still is to this day. But I was like, I need a new direction. And so I came back to Australia. I trained to become a Pilates teacher. And back then, Pilates sort of didn't have the notoriety or it wasn't the method du jour, I suppose. It didn't have as much. It was a rehab method for dancers and people that were coming out of different things, but I loved it so much. I used to do it when I'd visit back in Australia. And so I did my Pilates certification, I did my PT training. And then throughout my experiences, I guess, with training myself and also other people, I realized that physical fitness wasn't the only pathway to health. It wasn't the only thing that you needed to focus on to, I guess, be truly fit. And so I decided to go down a path of discovering what it meant to me to be truly healthy and truly happy, and what were the different areas in my life that I needed to focus on? How did I train those different areas? Could you even train those areas? And that led me to Bali. I sort of met my now ex-husband, but my husband at the time. And I lived there for 5 years, experimenting with different things, and basically got what you would call a toolbox of different things that really helped me keep it together. So physical fitness was one thing, and training my body was definitely something that I enjoyed doing, but training my mind, keeping my emotions in check, adding things like breath work and meditation and all of those sorts of things into my life really made such a huge difference to me as, an overall human, I guess. And those things started to really impact my life on the whole. So when I started looking for, I guess, a workout that combined all of those things together, I couldn't find one that was efficient, that was cost effective, that was something that you could do daily. And so I decided to create it. And that is what KAAIAA is. It's a combination of all the different things that keep me together and functioning at my best. And then I sort of decided that I wanted to share it with the world, and here we are today. So yeah, I feel like I've had 9 lives. I feel like I've had so many different careers, and I've got 2 kids, and there's so many parts to me, but they've all contributed to where I am today. So
Amazing. What a phenomenal journey. It's like you're always putting on a different hat and seeing where you can go next, which is
so many hats. So
like,
many hats.
it's like
Sometimes you wear like 3 at once.
yeah. And you learn how to manage it the best way you can, and until you break down, and then I've got to address something.
Yeah, actually, someone asked me, I was doing another podcast, someone was like, do you believe in balance? And I was like, it's that mythical kind of golden egg, isn't it? You want to be able to have that work-life balance. And I'm just like, balance is fluid. Like, you can't ever be 50% one and 50% of the other. Sometimes you're going to be 90% and 10, but I think you have to zoom out and look at your life as a little bit more than just 24 hours and go, how do I feel? And if in those moments you're feeling unbalanced or feeling destabilized or feeling like your energy is low, then I think that's where you start to go, okay, maybe I need to put some more attention into here or more attention to there. I think balance is an unachievable sort of,
Like an expectation, and you feel like you can never meet it because you're constantly having to chase it, and then we all
exactly, and it's just something else that we have to feel guilty about.
yeah, but it's like that mellow word as well, where it's not perfection or it's not like struggling, but it's in the middle, so it's achievable, but it's still unrealistic.
Exactly. And I just think, doing the best that you can do every day, and not burning out. I think that's really the key with anything to do with balance is, am I able to take a few moments for myself just to reset, to reflect, where am I? How am I feeling? Are there any things that I can do better? Are there any things that I, can probably park for now? And just being able to kind of view your life as those little pieces that we actually do have some choices around, and not beat yourself up if you're not living that perfect kind of balanced dream.
And we look at that because a lot of people get to a certain stage where whether they just focus on their physical health and they put aside their mental or spiritual health. And then it comes to a point where they do just break down, and they get in this cycle where they break down, they recover, they do it all again, and they break down again. How do you break that cycle, and how do people not get into that phase or that environment where they're constantly just pushing and pushing and pushing and they break down and then they deal with it?
Well, I think the problem with all of that and what you've just said is that we view our mental health, our physical health, our emotional health as separate things, where they're not separate. So your physical health is going to impact your mental state. Your mental state is going to impact the choices that you make around your health in general, and everything is linked. And I think the challenge that we face is that all of the things that we do to address those different areas of our lives are there for those specific kind of buckets. And you can't expect to just pour all of your energy into training your physical body and no effort or energy into your mental health or your emotional health, and expect your entire life to be, for want of a better word, balanced. If you look at us as pillars of energy, you've got physical, you've got mental, you've got emotional, you've got spiritual, and the health of one area indirectly or directly affects the health of another. So if you're constantly overtraining, if you're constantly pouring all of that energy into the physical, yes, you might on the outside, have this kind of, that's what happened to me. I poured all of my effort and energy into attaining this sort of ideal physical body that everybody out there was telling me that I needed to have, the whole world. And especially when I started training and back in sort of the mid 2000s when Instagram started becoming a thing, and we were sold this version of what it meant to be, I guess, healthy or even happy. Like, where does happiness come from? It comes from looking a certain way, where the more I started training and the more I achieved that version of physical perfection, I suppose, if you will, the more miserable I became, because the pressure to maintain it, the practices that I was engaging in were not, I guess, deemed, you couldn't really call them very healthy. And it was all to maintain this outward sort of physical appearance, when on the inside, I was angry, I was hungry, I was angry, I was disconnected from reality, and I was disconnected from my kids, and I was disconnected from myself. And I was just walking around in this kind of constant state of, I guess you could say my nervous system was just always on this sort of high alert. And so I started asking myself, how is it that I can look a certain way, but feel this, horrible, horrible feeling? And that's when I started to delve into mental health, emotional health. What does that mean? Where does happiness come from? Where does fulfillment come from? How do you measure that? When it's something physical, you can see when muscles start to grow, you can see it, it's tangible. What about the intangible stuff? What about the feelings, the emotions? What about the decisions that you're making, the language that you're using? Where does all of that come from? And it comes from our mindset, and our mindset is not going to be trained in the gym. Our mindset is going to be trained by putting ourselves into challenging situations. How do we navigate those? How do we bring a little bit more patience and kindness and compassion into our lives? Where does that come from? And those are the qualities, I guess, the frequency that you want to be moving towards, to pull yourself out of a feedback loop of guilt and that we associate with a lower vibration or a low energy level. How do we elevate ourselves up into those kind of higher frequencies? And it's through training, but modalities like breath work, like meditation, that is really designed to kind of bring you into the present moment, get you out of your head, out of the past, out of the future, into the now, and adding those things into our training regime so they become part of our habitual daily training. And those are the things, when I started adding them in, and it doesn't have to be, an hour of either of them. It can just be 5 minutes, but consistently doing it, you start to really see and feel how that is affecting you on the whole. And what that leads to is better choices around your health. So you start to feel better, you start to want to eat better, you start to maybe not have that third, fourth, fifth drink, you start to sleep better, you start to, and all of these things, the world starts to really kind of, you start to attract all of those things that you're giving out. And it's just this beautiful kind of energetic cycle. And so that's what I was starting to experience. And it just felt so good. I almost got addicted to that feeling. I never wanted to go back and feel low anymore, and now if I do have those moments, because everybody does, I'm a mum, I've got kids, I'm running a business, I'm a single parent, like I understand the pressures, and sometimes I'm tired and all of that sort of stuff, but at least I have, an effective toolbox now that I can kind of dip into to help myself out of that funk. And I don't spend very much time in it because, no one wants to be down there.
I mean, and that's the thing. I think you look at that as well, and sometimes people do like to stay in the funk, or do like to play the sort of victim mentality, because it can be useful and it can be easier, and they don't deal with stuff until it is at the worst case scenario and they've got no other option to do so. Why do you think people stay in that rut or stay in that comfort zone instead of going, well, I can reach my full potential and be really happy, but it's so much easier just to desire it than to actually be there?
No, it's a great question. And I think, people have been wrestling with it since all of this stuff has started to come to light. I think there's a myriad of factors, without going too much into trauma and where it sits and how it develops, and you know, how much we actually hang on to it as something that is strangely comforting. The fact that to get out of that feedback loop of, you know, of playing the victim, I suppose, and I hate to use that word, but all that is saying is that I don't want to accept responsibility for where I am. It is easier for me to say it was my parents' fault, it was that person's fault, it was somebody else's fault. There's the blame, because then that absolves me of having to almost deal with it. And all I'm going to do is sit with it. And I mean, there's a reason that they call it work, doing the work, because it's work. It takes work. It takes commitment. It takes courage to face the things that we've spent so long pushing aside or burying. Why on earth we want to drudge it all up and sort of drag it out? And I guess for me, it just came down to a choice of whether or not I wanted my future to be determined by my past, or whether I wanted my future to be determined by my present. And if that is a choice that I can make, it means in this present moment, I need to change the relationship I have with the things that have happened in my past and forgive and have compassion for. And it doesn't mean to ignore or to deny. All it does is means to look at it as through a different lens. So if you can accept responsibility for where you are in this moment and say, okay, I had a series of events in my life that didn't make me feel great. There were some things that happened, some choices that I made, some choices that other people made that impacted me profoundly, but I'm not going to be defined from this moment by those experiences, and just take all of it as a beautiful lesson, you know. And obviously that takes a lot for people depending on what has happened in the past, but forgiveness, compassion, it's so liberating to start looking at your life ahead without carrying all of that baggage around. And I also think a lot of people are almost afraid to question, who am I without all of that stuff? Do you know what I mean? Like, what does that mean for me? Some people define themselves through their trauma. Some people are so attached to it because they feel like it's their identity, when in actual fact it's not. It's a series of things that have kind of latched onto you. You're wearing it like a big piece of armor. And if you shake it off, you are still this beautiful, relevant, vibrant, energetic being that can now live in their full expression without carrying around the weight of everything that's happened, other people's opinions, you know, all of that sort of stuff, all the conditioning that has just been like piled onto you. And it's almost like you've wiped the slate clean. And it doesn't mean that, you know, as I said before, it doesn't mean that you deny that any of this stuff has happened. It just means that you've turned around and said, from this moment on, I'm not going to let it define me. And that is a process. That isn't as quickly as just, you know, flicking that switch. It is a process. It needs to be unpacked. It needs to be talked through. There needs to be some clear directives as to what happens if I get down that slippery slope, like, and I end up back there, because it will, you know. Healing, I suppose, is not linear. It's this crazy roller coaster of different emotions. But I think if you can always look back and reflect of how far you've come, and you know, there is this upward trajectory if you are consistent around doing things that you know will help you view the events in your life as something that is happening for you rather than something that's happening to you. Take back responsibility, take back the control, take back the power that exists in those moments with yourself. Then you can actually look ahead and see this really amazing, bright future where anything is possible, and it all can be activated from you. And that's what KAAIAA really helped me and, so many other people realize, is that it starts with you and it stops with you. It doesn't, there's nothing external to go out there looking for. Nobody is going to give you the answer. No one's going to give you the magic potion, the golden, it's inside you, and it requires you to go in there and really, start to, if you want to. I mean, look, this is the other thing. It's absolutely a personal journey. And when you're ready, maybe you're never ready. Maybe you start 100 times and go and slip back into that thing. And that's normal and that's natural. But it's about asking yourself, is there more to me? Is there something inside me that can help me create the life that I want? This is where that spark, I think, starts.
And I think as well, so many people are so invested in waiting for that compassion, that love, that worth, and that validation from other people that they never actually, as you said, take that accountability for themselves or look, well, how can I get compassion, love, and worth from within? And that's where I think a lot of people get stuck or then get miserable or get stuck in that little rut because they're waiting all the time for someone else to give them that compliment, to give them that job offer when they're not going out and just doing it themselves.
Absolutely. And I said it before, the way that you view yourself is the way that the world views you. So turn that spotlight inwards and you'll be amazed at how quickly that starts to manifest for you. I mean, the law of attraction is a prime example of how energy works. So you will get back what you are giving out. If you shower yourself in love, if you are kind to yourself, if you are patient with yourself, if you are compassionate with yourself, then it's amazing what that does for the outside world and how you view things. I did this incredible experiment, and what I tell you, what else is also amazing is how difficult it is for people to be kind to themselves. I remember teaching a class to a group of year fives at Miranda Public School, and I did this exercise because I just wanted to see, at age whatever, 9, what the mindset of kids were. And so I did this exercise where we all went around the room and I said, okay, I want you to turn to the person next to you and I want you to tell me something that you love about this person. And they all went around the room and it was so great. And it was like, oh, Jenny's so kind. And, Peter, and it was beautiful. And didn't skip a beat. It was just like bang, 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 bang. And they were showering each other in just so much love. And so afterwards I said, okay, now I want to go around the room again and I want you to tell me something that you love about yourself. And it was like silence. And then one person was like, well, I'm really good at maths. And it started to become not a quality about like a characteristic or an emotional trait. It started to become like an action. I'm really tidy. So it made me start to go, we view others through a lens of how they make me feel, but we think others view us through a lens of what we do. And it was just, and I think that's a really important thing to differentiate between. It's like, how do you want to make other people feel? That's what's going to be remembered, is how you made other people feel, not by particularly what you did, but the way that we view ourselves is the value that we put on our stuff is through our actions, our achievements. But it shouldn't be, it should be just, I want to go out and be a really decent human. That should be your baseline. I'm going to wake up today and just try and be a good person. Do you know what I mean? And I think if you can kind of wake up every day and go, that's my goal for today, you can't really go wrong with that. And it's more difficult than you think. Like it's a thing that you have to think about. It's a thing that you need to practice. It's something that you need to actually put some energy into. And I especially think in this day and age of tech and digital, and I'm seeing it in my 13-year-old, the disconnection he thinks he's connected to his friends, but the disconnection, the isolation, the constant, it's a different world to when I was growing up, where there was none of this, anything of that, and you were forced to go outside and play and interact with other humans. And now it's just such a different landscape. And it's like, how do we teach our children? How do we teach these generations that human contact and body language and all of those soft skills and all that sort of stuff is just as important, if not more, than the doing or the achieving or and I think it's a really important time for people in our industry to have these conversations around how do we support and train, and what are the things that we can do to help people connect to that side of themselves.
And with that, how do you then encourage for example, your 4 pillars of health, where it touches and taps into, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, to a generation that is based a lot on the physical? I mean, you look at social media and it's all physical. How we're liked or how we're validated or our worth, it all comes back to how you look and how many likes you get online. And how do you push that message, as I said, to a generation that is being brought up in an environment where I like you based on what you look like?
It's a good question. I mean, I do think that the conversation is starting to shift, and especially, the millennials, Gen up, they are starting to. I mean, look, I'm 46 years old. When I was 20, do you think we had any idea around mental health or consciousness? Like those words just weren't. They weren't. They were woo woo. They were what the hippies did up in Mullumbimby. You're like, it just was not in the mainstream. At least now it's starting to become part of the daily vernacular. And I think encouraging those conversations with the younger generation, like, my son, there's mindfulness classes in high school now. They're having conversations around mental health. I have a 4-year-old daughter as well, and even in her daycare, they do kind of yoga and I think so. I do think that it's moving towards integrating those sorts of practices into more of a daily routine. But if, as I said before, it's almost like you're still trying to bring it back to a baseline because there is so much digital presence. We can now access what is happening globally at the tip of our fingers, and it's almost overwhelming to see what's happening around the world, to the point where you're like, how on earth can I make a difference? What does it matter what I do? And I think, and also this is where people and communities become divided, because it's always like us against them, this cause, that cause, and everything has become very polarized. You have to pick a side. Nothing can kind of just exist in harmony anymore. It's like, if you're with them, then you're against them. Well, no, I'm not against anyone. So I think that digitally it's a minefield. Do you know what I mean? You need to sort of tread carefully in there. But what I would say to anybody on social media, and I mean, I'm not saying anything that people don't know, is take it for what it is. It is a snapshot of a snapshot. It is a moment in time that does not in any way show you the fullness of that person's experience. So, let's not try and buy into this as a gospel or as a way of life. And I think the more connected you can be to yourself, the more that you can see it for what it is. And this is where the spiritual and the emotional part of the training, I suppose, comes into play, is having that really strong sense of self, to be able to know what's in front of you, to be able to not get taken down a rabbit hole of things just because somebody else is doing it, to be able to really speak your truth and stand in a place of going, you know what? I don't have to agree with you. I think it's, not resisting anybody's opinion, but just saying it's out there. This is what I think. I still love you. It's all great. And I think that's really hard these days. I think people really expect you to have a stance on something, and it has to be a positive or a negative. And so, I think it's just I think it's about inviting robust conversations, having some good dialogue, not being afraid to speak up, but also having compassion for, everybody out there in the world. It's a tricky time. I think it's a tricky time. I think it's an uncertain time. I think people are struggling with cost of living. I think, it's a very overwhelming time at the moment. So it's more important now than ever to introduce some practices that can kind of keep you a little bit aligned, a little bit centered, a little bit level-headed. And that's what we try and do with KAAAIAA. So.
And I mean, you look at your own personal experience when you said you didn't really grow up with social media, but it started to get introduced. You now have a big social media presence. Do you find even now that you get caught up in, we talk about the influencer effect, and where people do focus a lot on the body, or they push certain messages, and sometimes they're not always great to a lot of. Did you find when you first started, you ever got caught up in wanting to be popular and wanting to seek that approval from others?
Yes. My handle was Body by Leah Simmons. I mean, I was part of that initial Instagram wave of fitness influencers that focus very much on the body. I will put my hand up and say that I was that. I pushed an agenda that was unhealthy, that was untrue. I did, and I'm not proud of it, but I'm glad that I went through it and have come out the other side to be able to share my story. I'm not proud of some of the things that I did back then, but I think they were necessary for me to experience. It was part of my growth. And I only hope that sharing my experience will help anybody out there that is struggling with those sorts of similar things, to maybe think twice about sacrificing their own health for the sake of, as you say, a like or a view or whatever it is. Because let me tell you, it's not worth it. You will not. And also, unfortunately, it's so fleeting. These things are like gone in a nanosecond. You're yesterday's news before it's even tomorrow. And that's good or bad or otherwise. We digest things and consume things so quickly these days that it's in the wind, right? So what would you rather do? Consistently work on a longer term goal plan, starting a business, doing whatever it is, or just chasing your tail constantly to create content for people that, let's be honest, don't really give a fuck about you. They don't care. They do not. To then it just be either swipe left, swipe right, scrolled up, scrolled down, liked, not liked. Who cares? It's not important. What is important is integrity. What is important are values. What is important is how you show up for yourself every single day. Out there, it's not important. They're not important. Focus on the people in your circle, that inner sanctum of like 3. I don't even know. I've probably got 5 people that I would, in my life, one of them is my sister. Does that count?
Yes.
That I could even, and I'm like, these are the people. These are the important. These are your people. And the people out there, they're not your people. And so if you have a look at my feed, you'll see, I mean, first of all, I haven't posted in a month. I have had a break. I just was fatigued by the whole mindlessness of stuff that I was seeing. I just needed to get off it. I don't sell or spruik anything on my platform. I'm not an influencer in that way, as in I'm not paid by anyone to, to do any of that sort of stuff. And anything that I do share is usually some kind of piece that I've recorded from the class that day. It's an insight. It's a song lyric. It's some stupid dancing that I'm doing. Like, it's not, I'm not going, it's changed a lot over the years. And, I realized the value. So I ask myself a question every time I post anything. Is it going to add value to somebody's life? Is it necessary? Right? And if the answer to those two questions are no, it's not going up there. It just doesn't. What for? I want to see content that is inspiring and engaging for me. So that's the kind of content that I want to post. And if I'm not inspired, or if I'm, that might not be daily. It might be once a week. It might be once a month. I don't know. It is what it is for me right now, but I'm not beholden to this kind of cycle of having to get that sort of external validation. And look, to be honest with you, I am glad I'm not a 26-year-old person in this landscape. I really am trying to make it with a million other people that have, that are starting out. I'm really fortunate that that's not where I'm at. But I also want to share my experiences with those people and say, look, as long as what you're doing has integrity, I guess, then go for it.
Yeah, amazing. How did you shift though? Because a lot of people still are stuck in that mindset. And where was that point where you were like, all right, I need to change my messaging, or I need to change how I use social media and my presence on it?
I just became really honest with myself and how it felt.
Mm.
There's a thing called cognitive dissonance. Do you know what that term means?
Yeah, I've heard of it, but don't know the details about it.
So the definition of cognitive dissonance is saying one thing and doing another.
Mm.
And what that creates inside you is this dissonance. I can't explain. It's almost like there's something internally going on where you'll do something that isn't intrinsically aligned to your personal values or beliefs, and it starts to create this feeling inside. And I got to the point where I couldn't handle that feeling anymore. It was almost like a pressure cooker that was about to explode. And I knew that. And the day that I sort of became really honest with myself around what my life was actually like, as opposed to the life that I was showing, and how opposite they were. And I just was like, Leah, what are you doing? What are you doing? And who are you doing this for? Like, honestly, what is going on here? The people around you, your children, your husband, are suffering because you're trying to please some people out there that you don't even know. What is that? And that is when I started going, okay, I need to make some changes. And the changes weren't about different content, it was about internal changes. I needed to get to a place where I was saying what I mean and meaning what I say. It was as simple as that. Simple, but not easy. Simple, but not easy. And it's work and it's commitment, and you're going to feel like your life is falling apart, and people are going to leave. People will fall out of your life, they will. But at the same time, other people will kind of vibrate in. And it really is, it's going to feel like everything is just breaking apart and falling to shit. But in order to restructure, and I think in order for anything to become something new, pressure needs to be applied, pieces need to break, you need to put them back together in a different order. And that's where breaking point, that's where all of that sort of that comes from. And it was necessary to hit that place in order to then take stock, have a chat to myself, say it's time, I can't live like this anymore. I don't want to feel like this anymore. And some changes need to be made. So once you make that decision, then it's about going, okay, so what are the things that I can start doing that will start to put me on a different path? And that's a process too. There's no quick fix. There is no one size fits all. There is no magic bullet. There are support networks. There are modalities. There are things that you can do that will help you get back on track and give you some clarity around where it is that you want to go and how you want to get there. But again, it's about forming new habits, and it's about creating new neural pathways in your brain. And that is literally like, you're digging new trenches in that big blob of gray in your head. And that is going to take consistency and commitment. And I guess it comes down to how much you want it. It really does. And what is at stake, what you're about to lose, what you have to lose, and what's the ultimate goal for you. And for me, it wasn't worth blowing up my life to simply sit in a place of comfort, I suppose, is, in my comfort zone, which wasn't really comfortable because I loathed myself. So, but I wanted to climb out of that hole, and I did. And it was 100% worth it, and it's worth it every day. So
it's amazing. Congratulations to be able to really access that truth and now be able to share that with other people and watch other people go along that journey. That's phenomenal. And I want to then talk a little bit about the 4 pillars of health that you did mention. What specifically, because I know a lot of people will look at, say, the mental pillar and then the emotional pillar and even the spiritual and be like, well, that's all the same to me. What's the difference?
Okay, so for me, I mean, look, everybody's entitled to have their own definitions of everything, but for me, mental health is more about mindset. It's about being able to stay present. Okay, so it's about your concentration, your focus. Do you have clarity in your mind, or is it feeling cloudy? Do you experience memory loss? Do you experience brain fog? Do you wake up kind of not being able to remember what you did yesterday? What does that look like for you? So for me, the term mental health, I think out there, and for KAAIAA specifically, we do the modality of breath work to feed ourselves a little bit more oxygen, to get that oxygen intake into the brain so that we can start to open up those neural pathways, so that we can start to really flood the body with oxygen, activate the nervous system, bring some more life force into our cells, which will lead to a state of clarity and focus and better decisions and better problem solving and all of that. So that for me is what the mental part of it is. Obviously, the physical is what you can see, but it also comes down to nutrition. It also comes down to the quality of your sleep. So anything physical that affects your physical health, that is for me the physical pillar. That falls into the physical pillar. Emotional for me is about heart connection. So there's a difference between obviously the mind, the thoughts in your mind, and the feelings that you have in your heart. And sometimes they aren't communicating with each other. You know that expression around like you're leading with your head or you're leading with your heart. You know something logically can be a certain way, but then emotionally it can be the other way, right? So that's your head and your heart having a little dialogue with each other. So emotional connection is how connected are you to how you really feel. All right. So that's because there's a difference between how you think you feel and how you really feel. So it's about separating those two. And then for me, the spiritual pillar has nothing to do per se with religion, but it's more about connection. So how connected are you to yourself? How connected are you to others? And how connected are you to the world around you? How present are you? Do you feel like you have a higher purpose? What is that purpose? Are you living with a sense of passion and vibrancy? Have you found your purpose? Are you connected to the universe in any way? Do you believe that there is something called source energy? And whether that manifests in believing in a higher power, that's absolutely fine. But that is to understand that we are part of something much bigger than just us, that we are all connected. And for me, that's where the spiritual piece comes in. So they are separate, okay, but at the same time, they are all connected because we are energetic beings. Like, we have an energy field that you might not be able to see, but is very present. You know, if you sometimes walk into a room, you can sense somebody's mood without them speaking, because you feel it, right? So what is that? Is that physical? No, that's emotional, right? We are feeling through something, we are sensing something, and we are tapping into somebody else's energy. So this energy exchange, this constant flow of emotions and feelings and thoughts and behaviors and patterns is swirling around us all the time. And somebody else's, if someone comes into our field, there is this sort of energetic exchange. And I think the key is to have dominion and agency over your own energy field so you don't get sucked into somebody else's. And, so empaths can take on somebody else's energy, whereas compassion means that you can have compassion for someone, but you don't take on board from an energetic standpoint what it is that they are going through. So there's a difference between all of those things. And for me, understanding where you're at in each of those pillars will allow you to be able to pick the tool that you need to be able to kind of fuel yourself in those different buckets.
Great. What is one thing someone can do every single day that hits each pillar?
Okay, so it's breathe, move, meditate. And it doesn't have to be, well, first of all, KAAIAA is the thing that you need to do every day to hit each pillar, okay? Because it does. It's the only workout out there that hits each pillar. So that's it. But if you don't have, 20, 30 minutes to do that, if you just literally want to do something when you wake up, breath work, move, meditate. And all it is, I would get out of bed, swing my legs around, feet on the floor, still sitting on the edge of my bed, 10 big, deep breaths in and out. Okay, that's your breath work. Then put on your favorite song, have a little dance around, a little stretch, and then just sit with yourself for another 5. So the whole thing doesn't have to take more than, 12 minutes in the morning. And then you can add in whatever other little ritual that you love doing. You can go and make yourself a beautiful cup of tea, or cacao, or coffee, whatever you want to eat, whatever you want to drink. Maybe you journal a little bit. Maybe you go outside into nature, get your toes into some dirt. Whatever that makes you feel alive is going to be the thing that you can habitually do every single day to start to really build on, create those building blocks of raising your baseline so that you're feeling, good every single day. And if you can wake up and do that, then you've set yourself up on a pathway of success. That's my belief.
Awesome. I love that. And all that support and advice is amazing. I do have one final question. And
yes,
that is, if your younger self looked at who you are today, what do you think he would say?
My younger self, if I looked at myself when I was in my 20s, I'd be like, oh my God, you have so got this. I am going back onto the dance floor. Literally, I'd be like, you're fine. Everything's going to be fine. And, I can just go out there and party a little bit more.
Yeah, I love that. Would you say the same things to your kids?
Yes. I'm like, be a kid, go and experience life. With my children, I'm trying to develop them trusting their intuition. So developing that very strong independent sense of self from a young age so that they don't get led by the crowd and, question everything. And I also say to them, I mean, there's nothing that they could come to me and shock me with. I've done and seen everything in my life. So there's a big trust piece with my kids. I'm like, there's nothing that you could do that will be worse than if you lied about it. So, look, I have to be honest with you. I've done a lot of stuff in my life. I sung in front of 50,000 people at the Glastonbury Festival in 2005. I've had a band, but parenting is by far the hardest thing I've ever done.
Why do you think that is? Everyone always says that,
because you can't quit it. You just can't have you can't. You literally can't be like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm done.
Yeah, fair. And I suppose
it's tiring.
But it is, I guess, I mean, I'm not a parent, but what I understand is it is really hard, but at the same time, it can be quite rewarding.
It's very rewarding. And look, I'm not trying to dissuade anybody from doing it because it's very worth it. But yeah, you will learn more about yourself as a parent, as a person, being a parent, than you ever will in any retreat or, you just will. And it's a lesson in adaptability, in patience, in it's all of those things. And just when you think you've got it worked out, they just turn it around. Anyway, it's great. And I love my kids. I love you, Ryder and Lucky.
Oh, how amazing. This has been a phenomenal conversation about everything that you've done, everything that you are continuing to do, and how you even struggled to where you are now. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today. And where can people find KAAAIAA? And if they want to jump on board the Leah train, where can they follow you too?
Yes, so KAAIAA, KAAIAA.com. Just go in there. I have a digital platform. The Instagram for KAAAIAA is This Is KAAAIAA, and mine is I Am Leah Simmons. So yeah, just jump on and
be part of it.
Get on board.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. And
you're welcome.
Absolutely, congratulations on your story from where you started to where you are today. See that beautiful smile and everything that you're doing today is just phenomenal. And I know the community and the people that you're helping will be truly grateful. So thank you.
Oh, thanks, Ashley. I've really, really loved our chat, and thanks for having me on.